So in 2019, I was watching the Australian bushfires on TV from afar. And when I learned the koalas were too slow to run from the fires, it just triggered something in me. I've always created animals as self portraits. And somehow these overwhelming feelings that I was feeling for the country were all channeled into these koalas. And I wanted to make a large mural, something that couldn't be sold or owned. I remember feeling, how do I show loss and destruction and fear and still convey hope? And I remember growing up on Maui and picking up the burnt kiave pieces of wood from the fires along the shore and drawing on the rocks. So I asked my close friend in Australia if he could go hiking to the bushfire site and send me a box. So in the middle of Connecticut quarantine, I received this box of charcoal and spent the year drawing these murals in my house, around my house, in my garage, of these ephemeral images of endangered species, and they washed away in the rain at the mercy of the elements. It looks like they're crying, and it was just, vanishing materials, vanishing species, and also vanishing what we knew before 2020. I felt that I wanted to do something for Hawaii. I wasn't sure when I was going to see my family again, and I was thinking, I remember being really scared for Hawaii because it seemed so small in the middle of the ocean. And I took a screenshot of my niece on Zoom, and she was 13 at the time, and she just represented the hope for the future, but at the same time, the fears I had for what kind of world are we leaving our kids. And that led to me thinking I want to do something for our islands and for home. My first inspiration was to do endangered species in her hair, because she has really amazing hair. And after speaking to some friends who are living here, the coral reefs came up, and I knew right away that would be, because in the original picture she has AirPods on, and they look like little nautilus shells, and that just instantly, I had this vision of Ava with coral hair. And so it's a very personal image. At the same time, I always try to balance that with universal, and that's the inspiration for this mural. With these vanishing murals, I feel that the whole world is experiencing loss, change, uncertainty, and those are feelings that are all connecting us. And I hope to acknowledge those feelings, but also point out what we have in common that are so beautiful. Like, we can all agree that our natural environment is beautiful. Our air, our kids, the coral reefs, they're so fragile, so beautiful. And so what I hope to show is, this is what we're all uniting for. This is what we're all allies for. And this is what we can stand to lose very quickly if we don't act on it immediately. And so I do believe one person, their actions make a difference. And with this vanishing mural, knowing almost like it's like a sand, through the hourglass, that the clock is ticking, every piece of coral counts, every second counts, and this is what we're united to do.
So coral bleaching is what happens when, I'll back up just a little bit and tell you that corals are reef-building animals, and inside the tissue of the thin tissue of the coral animal lives a microscopic algae called zooxanthellae. And these zooxanthellae they photosynthesize, creating energy for the corals, and they also give the coral its color. So when it gets too warm, the water gets too warm for them, they expel. themselves from the coral, and that leaves the coral tissue clear. And then you can see that white calcium carbonate skeleton that they build, those reef building blocks are exposed, and that's what why it's called coral bleaching, because it appears white even though the coral may still be alive. It's now vulnerable because it doesn't have a food source. It's vulnerable to disease and mortality. So in 2015, we probably 75% of all the corals across all of the main Hawaiian islands bleached, and some of those died, some of them survived. Today, we estimate that about 30% of those living corals died because of that one event. And these kinds of marine heat waves or sea surface temperature, elevated sea surface temperatures coming through an area like it did when it hit here in Hawaii in the North Pacific that's expected to increase in frequency and severity as climate change progresses in the years and decades to come. So what we need to do is, as a society, as the people of Hawaii, is not only reducing our carbon footprint and advocating for carbon reduction and emission reductions across the world, as we all do everywhere. But locally, what we can really do is reduce the local stressors to corals and coral reefs. And those local stressors are land-based sources of pollution, overfishing, overuse, all these things. Like coral reefs can die like a death by 1,000 cuts. And so reducing those local stressors are going to make coral reefs more resilient to climate change and better able to withstand those impacts. I'm so moved by Jana's work, and it really resonates with me and my own experience growing up here on Maui and seeing the reefs as a young person, vibrant with color, rainbow reefs. And many of those places that had the vibrant reefs years ago are no longer covered with vibrant colored coral. They're covered with algae or paled corals. And that's why one of the reasons why Jana's work resonates with me so much, because she really put her heart and soul into this, and that helps all of us to really feel the pain of all these changes. But I want to thank Jana Irejo for her compelling work and helping us to move this issue out and help more people to become aware of the plight of our coral reefs and act to care for them. And I really want to thank the Maui Ocean Center Marine Institute for being our partner on this project, and to the Maui Ocean Center for displaying this mural. Really couldn't have done it without these exceptional partners, and thank you very much.
Coming here back home, this is the first trip since quarantine last year. Being able to make this mural here and to meet everyone here and to hear how the Nature Conservancy and the Maui Ocean Center and the Marine Institute, everyone is doing their parts for the reefs and hearing their stories. Like, there's so many people in this mural now. It really is like a living mural, because every time someone shared their story or explained a little bit about the reefs or feeding the fish and how, some are vegetarians and some don't, it just became this whole universe in this mural.